So far, in part 1 and part 2, we've covered using collaborative learning activities to support differentiated classrooms, and also how to avoid creating obstacles for students and working with their own brains to help them to retain information and then apply it in a creative sense, using the ideas of cognitive science was presented by Andrew Datch. And this final part is really inspired by Glenn Purcell's presentation, which was the plenary or keynote speaker of the day. And he really had a large focus on questioning and how we can use questioning more effectively in our classroom to meet the needs of multiple different types of learners. So really differentiating and allowing access to all learners, but more importantly in terms of questioning, helping all students to engage and participate in answering the questions that we pose, rather than the usual 5 or 6 students that answer every question and shoot their hands up. On the back of the worksheet that I've given you a range of different questioning suggestions. Glenn described many of those tried and tested that we already use, such as the no hands up strategy to prevent those students who desperately want to be heard every lesson and allow access for other students, prevent any domination, and discussed random student selectors or pick me apps such as that, or paddle pop sticks, the old school version. So he really did reinforce that we do many of the right things already, but some of the novel things that he introduced to me and to Sarah, who were both there for this session, is the idea of firstly developing a really strong culture of trust in your classroom. Students need to feel like they can make mistakes and answer incorrectly. What they shouldn't feel like is that they can avoid the question and just say, I don't know, and skip their turn and be safe for the rest of the lesson. So how do you balance that? How do you help the reluctant students engage with the ideas that you're asking about in a non-threatening way? As I mentioned in the previous part, rote learning and things have become very unfashionable and have gone out of trend, and similarly cold calling has been given a bad reputation. Many people say that cold calling creates anxiety and stress, and you mustn't cold call students in the classroom. So that means you mustn't point and say, Jeff, tell me the answer to this question. Glenn actually said that cold calling is a good thing, but as long as you actually provide the right environment to do so. So yes, trust is a big part of that, and allowing students to not feel exposed, and that means creating a whole classroom culture of trust. More importantly, it's how you ask the question and how much support you give the students in finding the answer will encourage participation and make cold calling a good thing to do rather than be frowned upon. So when you're inviting students who are reluctant to participate, you might consider asking them not necessarily what the answer to the question is, but what their process was in trying to answer the question. There's no right or wrong answer to that, so it takes the risk away and gets them used to participating and sharing their process and their thinking with the class. Some encouraging questions might be, what was your first step? What was your first thought when I posed this question? Describe the process that you went through to come to your answer without asking them to share the answer itself, therefore not allowing them any risk at all. The big challenge is always how you can shift from having the same 5 to 10 students putting their hands up towards 90 to 100% of the students participating, at least in their own mind, in constructing an answer for you. The strategies, which won't be new to you but might be a nice reminder, are to always increase your wait time. So typically in secondary schools it's something ridiculous like 0.6 seconds between posing a question and answering a question. If you count to 10 before answering the question and then choose a student, that gives all students an opportunity to consider A, it may be them who has to present an answer, and gives them time to actually formulate it. More, even safer still, is when you actually allow them to collaborate on an answer, and then when they're asked to share what them and their partner actually talked about. So a sort of a turn and talk type strategy, I think, pair share, which we've done many times before. But Glenn actually suggested it just needs to be part of our everyday questioning to support the students with the lower confidence and support the students who are managing to retrieve some information but need a bit of support in clarifying their solutions. One thing that we're still not very good at as a profession is withholding judgment. So allowing students to offer an answer and not affirming that or correcting it, just moving on to a second idea and a third idea and a fourth idea, and allowing all students or many students to share their answer without really knowing whether they're right or wrong, and that creates a different classroom discourse that is more supportive and again produces this trust. Before I talk about the I don't knows, Glenn also described how he shifts the responsibility and to an extent blame onto himself, particularly when using things like the traffic light cups. So instead of asking students to declare their lack of understanding, he reframes the question that he asks them and says things like, please let me know if I haven't been clear with my explanation. And that shifts the responsibility to the teacher. And then students are more likely to actually confess or be open and honest about whether or not they understand the content. And sometimes that might be woven into the way that he questions the student. So by taking responsibility on the teacher, it allows students to make errors, and they're freely able to let the teacher know that actually, I don't think you explained that in the way that I understood. Would you mind doing it again? One of the key problems in questioning is how to deal with the I don't know. In my own experience, particularly in my Year 10 class, I have many students who just shrug, I don't know. And that seems to be their pass to get out of actually having to engage with the ideas or answer the questions at all. It would be a great opportunity today to share some ideas about how to deal with that common problem that we see in classrooms. But some of the things that came from the conference were the response to that could be, okay, you don't know the answer at the moment, but how about I ask 2 other people to share their ideas, and then I'll come back to you and you can tell me which one you prefer of those and explain to me why. So I'll just ask you to listen carefully to some other people and then come back to you. And that sometimes can give that student an opportunity to take a breather and listen to the content or a possible answer, and then while still engaging and participating in the class and not giving them the opportunity to say, I don't know. This is also likely to reduce the amount of I don't knows that you get in questioning scenarios. Bouncing the ideas around the classroom and asking students to maybe, if they don't know the answer, give 2, 3 or 4 possible answers that may be right or wrong, and then another student can choose which one they think might be correct. There's a wealth of information, particularly in Glenn Pearsall's new book, all about formative assessment, whose first chapter is about questioning. This could be a whole workshop in itself. But some of the strategies that are on the back of the worksheet that we've handed you today might be useful to you, and come and see Sarah or I if you're interested, and we can forward you the book. I think we've both got a copy, so come and borrow that, and there might even be some available for you to borrow. Otherwise, I'll hand over to Sarah, who's about to teach you how to produce a screencast and use a screencast to flip the learning and provide better learning opportunities for the diverse learners in your class.